All right, welcome back to the Go Athletics Connections podcast. We're so glad that you're here today. I am just so pumped to bring you another amazing coach from around the country. This is episode 204. And so I just want to give a little bit of encouragement. If this is your first time listening to the show, you notice we're at episode 204. That means there are 203 other amazing people and groups of people that have been on this podcast. I'd encourage you in the podcast app that you're listening right now, or if you're watching on YouTube, go back and look through episode 1, 5, 10, 66, 142, 199. Look at some of the others. I guarantee you there are some other coaches, and we've had coaching staffs on here before that will challenge you and encourage you in what you do as a track coach or as a track athlete. And so speaking of that, we're going to get to today's guest. Help me welcome the head coach of Catawba. I made sure I pronounced it right. Catawba College. I didn't look at the mascot. I love mascots. I hope we're like the Catamounts or something like that. We're going to find out here soon. Help me welcome the head coach of Catawba College, Mr. Jason Bryan. Jason, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So what is it? Catawba? It's got to be something with a C, like Cougars, Catamount, something.
Yeah, we're getting started on a hot one already. It is the Catawba Indians currently.
Oh,
So yeah, but we have a relationship with the Catawba Indian Nation down in Rock Hill, South Carolina. The college started in Catawba County, which was named obviously after the Indian Nation. But we have a very close tie with the Catawba Indian Nation, so we're allowed to have that name. But we are also working on like a kind of an animal mascot right now. We've changed some branding recently, and I don't know. They'll let me know what I can put on my uniform.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna go on a limb and say you as the track coach, cross country coach, you don't get to speak into that very much. You just get to go, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. All right, we'll wear this.
Yeah, exactly. But we're in I think in a situation where we do have that relationship with the Catawba Indian Nation, and we are very grateful to have that name, and I think it's we want to honor them as well when we start looking at mascots as far as animal mascots, things like that. So we're in talks to them about what would honor their that specific Indian Nation, and I think that I think we'll find that out when they tell me. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love it. Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad we hit the hot button right off the bat. That's
Yeah.
good. No more controversy at all the rest of the time here. Well, Jason, super excited to get to know you a little bit better and learn your journey in this great profession of coaching track and field. I start all these interviews kind of in the same vein with the same question. Jason, assuming that you were an athlete, whether it's track or other sport, at some point in your life, coaching changed for you. It went from, in your mind, something that was done to you, go run this, go lift that, go throw this, etc., to an idea of like, oh, wait a minute, like I could be a coach. Like I love this coach, or maybe you dislike this coach, and so I want to do the opposite of what this person does. But somewhere it had to change and be like, oh, this could actually be a profession. Where does coaching begin for you in that thought process?
Yeah, so I did compete in college, distance events, mid-distance events at actually at Anderson University in South Carolina, who is in our conference, and we compete against regularly, and they're a very good program. But I would say probably my junior year in college, I was named team captain, and my journey, I wasn't very good in high school. I got a little better in college. I was never a national class, kind of athlete, but I got better in the conference and contributed, and I enjoyed that process. And I think my senior year, we lost our distance coach going into he ended up leaving going into my last semester, and I kind of coached myself / helped coach some of the guys on the team, and I enjoyed it. And they listened to me because I'd been the team captain, and so that kind of started me thinking, I enjoy this, and I really latched onto the sport, and I fully, I was all in college, and so I wanted to stay in it, and the way I could stay in it, was not to compete as a pro, obviously, but would be to, stay in it in coaching, and I tell people I never left college, I'm still in college environment, I'm still out of college every day, and I enjoy the aspect of the college athlete and this time in their life. Because what you kind of, you're figuring out who you are. And if I can be a part of that and help along the way, then that's what I enjoy about it. And I think I saw that as an athlete, how much it changed me. And I think I love being a part of that now.
Something, the way you said something kind of hit me. It's something I've kind of worked towards when I talk to coaches. Pardon me. If you've talked to me at the convention before or at other places, you've heard me, and I think I've done it here on the podcast too. I rail against the word just, right? Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I'm just a track coach," or "I'm just this," and it's like, "Oh, you're devaluing yourself when you say just," right? Something you said there, and I've heard it quite often, the way you just described yourself when you talked about being an athlete, and you said, "Oh, I wasn't a national qualifier, or, anything like that, but I was, solid, I got better," and things like that. You kind of devalue yourself a little bit there, Jason. And when I say that is, you were a track athlete. First of all, how many get to compete? How many track athletes get to compete in the college level? This many, very, very small. So you are right off the bat by running in college in a very select group, my friend. Just by running track, even though it's the most participated sport on the high school and collegiate level, think about your high school. There were, depending on how big it was, there were hundreds of people who never had the chutzpah to go run track. So you don't devalue what you ran track. That period. That right there is enough of a qualifier for you. Whether you want, and there's so few winners. There's so few conference champions and national champions. That's not your worth, is whether you were first or not. Your worth is that you went out there and you competed. You put yourself out there, my friend. I have a kid that just ran his first sixth grade track. And so I'm dealing with this in a whole different light now of who our identity is, right? It's like, it's okay that you're not the fastest kid today, by the way. You're in sixth grade, for crying out loud. But that's not who your value is. So sorry, I went a little rant there. When you described that, I was like, oh, no, Jason, don't compare yourself to what other people happen to have done. You're awesome, man. You were an athlete. That's awesome. And you were an athlete on college. I love that. And you're an athlete at Anderson, which I love because they just redid their facility, 2 years, relatively soon.
Yeah.
And we were so honored to choose that. And I love the design that they did for all their equipment. They did an amazing, amazing job there. So shout out to your alma mater, man. They did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So what did you, I'm going to step off my soapbox here. What did you go into college thinking for a career? We all think something, whether it's going to be fireman, business owner, bank clerk, I don't know. You didn't go in thinking you were going to be a coach. What was the plan when you went to Anderson?
Yeah. I mean, I was the quintessential athlete who waits until midway through sophomore year, which is when the NCAA makes you pick a major, to, figure out what I wanted to major in it. But I think I had, at that point, you kind of go off your, mentors and influencers and things like that. And I had a really good English teacher my freshman year, and I enjoyed that side of it, maybe in journalism or something like that. But my dad and I had a conversation about it, and he was like, I don't know what you're going to do with an English degree and all this. And so it came down to, pretty much a general business degree is what I went with. And you can do a lot with that. So I had a business degree, and I think it was business management was a specific degree, and figured out very quickly accounting was not for me. I did like, and this kind of maybe was foreshadowing a little bit, I love the leadership and the marketing, to be honest with you, side of things, which, and we can talk about this, later too, but it's funny how things start to show you kind of, and things that you've worked on in the past come back and help you later on in your life. And you see that, like, like taking that marketing class and really diving into that.
Mm-hmm.
The recruiting, it helps with, marketing our program and our school and your mindset for that. And so, business was my degree in college, and I ended up getting my master's in business as well while I was there. And
oh, wow.
So, hopefully being a resume sorter one day, put me in a different pile of resumes. But it helped me more than I realized looking back, to be business major.
You're touching on that word leadership, which, if you're going to be a coach, whether you are great at the X's and O's or not, you have to be a leader. You've got all these eyeballs staring up at you wanting to know, what do we do next, coach? So I loved speaking about that topic. It's a natural topic when we're talking to and about track coaches. And it started, well, not necessarily started, but one of the examples that you gave was in this junior senior year, first of all, being named team captain. And then as you know, there's a vacancy on the coaching staff and you kind of fill the void there. Where did that, not everyone can do that. Not everyone wants to do that. By obvious that not every one of the people on your cross country team became team captains and helped coach the team, right? And it doesn't make them more or less of a person. But where did that want for you come from? Was there a high school coach that you emulated? Maybe it was the coach that left. Where did that that vision? Someone has to you have to see it kind of first to do it. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know. That's going pretty deep. I don't know if I've thought about exactly where that came from, but I loved sports from a very young age. My dad was a very good high school athlete. He didn't compete at the college level. There weren't as many opportunities, I don't think, back then. But yeah, I mean, I grew up doing almost every sport there was, and from a very young age, this is very specific, but from a very young age, I'm playing football at the University of South Carolina. I was raised as a South Carolina fan, which was not an easy life.
Yeah, it's much better today than it was back then.
Yeah, in the 90s, it was rough. Yeah, I was so dedicated. I remember going on the playground and to be honest with you, I guess I had, I don't know, the ability to kind of wrangle everybody together on the playground. Like, this is what we're going to play today, and we're going to act like we're running out of the tunnel at South Carolina. And the kids would do it on the playground. And I don't know if I maybe forced them to do it or, I suggested it strongly, but from a very young age, I loved Rudy was my favorite movie. I loved that, sports and just, I don't know, it was very inspirational to me. And I think, maybe that's why I just was like, oh, I just want to be in this lifestyle. And I do think stepping into the role of team captain, and I was team captain my junior year, and we ended up winning a conference championship that year. And it was just, the whole season was just, it was amazing. And I think that really solidified, burned that into my consciousness that that was fun. And I enjoyed that. And seeing everybody maximize their potential and doing it as a team, and those guys still talk to them on a weekly basis. 20 years later. And so that is something that I wanted to be a part of, and I think maybe that was what, thinking back, that's kind of what really got me into the coaching side of things.
Well, shout out to South Carolina football. Shane Beamer was actually a GA at Mississippi State when I was at coaching at Mississippi State. So I got to know him a little bit as a youngin, and was just in awe more because of his dad, to be honest with you. But obviously doing something right.
Coaches know coaches, and I think outside looking in. I mean, I don't know the day to day. I don't know how he interacts with people on the day, but you see those guys respond to him. Yeah, they love him. And he's doing something right, and he is investing in them. You can tell they love him.
It's probably the hype videos that he does.
He also he seems to really, really genuinely care about them. And I'm not saying there are coaches that, there's not saying that other coaches don't, but you can really, he's very authentic. I think he's very vulnerable. He puts himself out there and in those hype videos. Right. They appreciate that. And
I like a guy that can. I like a guy who can put himself out there and let people make fun of him. Sure, yeah, absolutely. That's authenticity, right? I mean, I quite like that. Not trying to paint this curated, perfect SEC head coach image, if you will. But it's like, man, I'm Shane. I grew up a coach's kid, and we're speculating a lot, of course, on him. But I do quite like that, and it must work because they got that super stud sprinter football player, Nicholas Harbor, I think is his name. Oh my. I can't wait to see this kid, man. Oh my, there's few people that come out of high school that's like, if I don't have a connection, like I'm gonna watch their career. It's like, well, this kid, I'm gonna watch his career. So that's exciting.
Sure, Curtis is happy about that too.
Yeah, I haven't heard him complain about it. That's for sure. Well, Jason, so when you team captain and going into the senior year, and you start filling kind of a coaching void there as well. And maybe that's when the coaching bug really solidified itself. Did you do anything different as it relates to the workouts? And I don't mean X's and O's. We don't talk X's and O's. What I mean is, again, freshman year, sophomore year, even junior year, coach wrote the workout for you and you did it. And maybe you asked, well, why are we doing this? And why are we doing this on the next day? And those kind of things. But then when you go into coaching, and it may not happen from the very get-go, especially as a college senior, but some point in coaching, we start going, well, I need to learn more. I know this is what I did, but I need to learn why we did that and maybe why we shouldn't have done that and what I should do here. Did you start looking at the workouts differently at any point? Or was it still just like, all right, I'm a runner. What's the workout? All right, let's go run the workout.
Yeah, at that point, it was still kind of like we're doing what we've done, what's worked. And like I was in that world of like, that's the only thing I knew was what we had done at Anderson. And it had been working to my, I mean, I thought it had been. Looking back on it, it's funny the things that you, why did we do that? Or I can't believe we did that every week. Or, and looked at the X's and O's now from that lens, and like, you're like, I don't understand exactly why we did that, but no, I think that came later because I actually ended up after I got done. I was one of those, I needed to go a little bit longer to get my degree. So I had to come back for another semester, but I was done with eligibility. There was no COVID year or anything back then, obviously. So I had to find something to do. So I ended up going over to Erskine College, which is 20 minutes away from Anderson. That is another Division II program. And a buddy of mine who had ran at Erskine was, they were like, hey, you're here. We don't have a head coach. You're the head coach now. And he had just graduated and been the head coach. And so,
Wow.
do you want to help me out and volunteer? We had that vacancy at Anderson for our assistant coach who had left. And I was like, I'm easily going to get this. Like, my head coach is going to hire me, no doubt. Like, I was the guy who thought he knew everything. I thought I knew everything. A young guy who thought he knew, everything there was to know about distance running. And my head coach ended up interviewing people, and I'm like, that's weird. He's interviewing people. I mean, he interviewed me, and well, that's, he's just doing that, right?
He's got to do that, right?
Yeah. And I'm the team captain. I brought you a conference championship. I'm like, I'm just like, head can't fit in the room, and he didn't hire me. He hired another guy who, obviously had some coaching experience, and it really messed with me, but also, made me mad. And so I was like, I need to go somewhere else. Obviously, I'm not going to be here helping out. And it was terrible because like all my buddies were on the team, and like I had been their team captain, and like so I ended up going over to Erskine for that semester and driving over there like 3 days a week, volunteering. It was just a volunteer role. And we ended up beating Anderson that fall in cross country on the men's side. And it ended up not working out with that coach that was at Anderson that had gotten the job. And so in January next semester, my head coach was like, hey, we'd love to have you back. And obviously it wasn't a good call with that other guy. And not to say that it would have been better necessarily, but he's like, we do have a vacancy now, and we'd love to have you back. And so
pause right there. Because first of all, I got to thank you for your openness and authenticity. I mean, what some people don't maybe realize when they're listening to the podcast, there are no scripted questions. So Jason here, there's nothing we've pre-talked about, nothing. It's like, hey, Jason, make sure you talk about this, or hey, that was a great story. Make sure you bring this up. He gets to direct his own story. Like if he killed someone in college, he gets to tell if he decides to tell that story or not. Thank God he did. I assume you did not do that, Jason. So they get to direct their own story here on the Connections podcast. So you didn't have to say that. I mean, and you were really like it, and we're going to explore this as we move along here, but there's obviously a lot of self-awareness that came to you because you were like, oh, I thought I knew it all back then. My head couldn't fit in the room. Those are things that you just said there. And people who still are like that today don't say that, right? They're like, oh no, I know what I'm doing. I can't believe that coach made the mistake and didn't hire me, et cetera, et cetera. You've gotten through some self-awareness of like, oh, I was a little, you didn't use this word, but cocky or, overconfident in my skills. So I first of all, just totally thank you for, being that complete transparent with us. Cause that's the type of things that will help other people. Like there's other people listening today going, wait a minute, do I need to take a step back and look at myself? Is that why I didn't get hired at this other job? And I thought I should have, that's super helpful to the coaching body. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. So now the real question, as you just talked about kind of your mindset and the ego. Remember, ego is not bad. Bad ego is bad. The ego is what helps us to dress nicer, get more educated, take shots that we quote unquote aren't supposed to take, things like that. So ego's good. Bad ego is bad. So you just admitted, kind of you were in the bad ego spot at this point. You go to Erskine, you beat the team that you were, air quotes here, supposed to have been coaching. And then in January, so after cross is all over, you win. You kind of a little bit of the thumb in the, nose to the thumb, whatever they say, to your coach, like, hey, man, look what we did over here. I'm just volunteering over here. And then he comes to you and says, hey, that one didn't work out. Would you like the job? You've got a path here. You could have easily, and I don't know, I didn't actually hear the answer. You could say, oh, yeah, now you want me. I'm no one's second place. I'm no one's second choice. I've heard those terms used a lot in our industry.
Yeah.
And it's hurt a lot of people because they can't let that ego go. Or you could have said, oh, thank goodness. I'd much prefer to coach at my alma mater. So, okay, yes, I'll take the job at Anderson. What did you do when coach came to you? What was your mindset and your attitude as he was saying things that you knew, hey, it didn't work out, and now we'd like for you to take the job? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I think part of the blessing is that I had, looking at it, I had very little to do with that Erskine team beating Anderson. The head coach,
There's a lot of factors into those
yeah,
things, sure.
he blew my mind when I got there. I'd only been in one world in college and what we had done and what we had focused on and all that. And it wasn't all bad. But then when I went there, hearing things about nutrition for the first time,
Ah,
the specifics about workouts and like how you look at your competition, and you shouldn't care about that. You do your thing. And like, I was like, oh, I've never thought about it.
wow.
And like hearing my buddy, John Sell, who was a great coach and was a good runner, um, explain those things. We had long talks and things like that. And like, he was a year ahead of me in school, so not that much older, so we were, friends, but, hearing him explain those things to me for the first time and hearing those things for the first time humbled me and showed me I did not know half the stuff I thought I did.
Mm,
And so that brought me into the room the next time with my coach at Anderson differently, I think, and with a different mindset, and grateful to have the opportunity and not be
expected.
vengeful about like, oh, you didn't hire me. And so that really never crossed my mind. And
Awesome.
the guy had done a disastrous job at Anderson who he had hired. And so like it was epically bad. And so it was, and I had kind of heard that stuff that it had been going that way. And so I knew it was kind of heading that way. So
Mm.
in January, like I was grateful to have the opportunity and work with my friends and literally go back to the team that I was on and now I'm coaching. So that was an interesting concept. I think I heard you last week, and I think the podcast came out with the young man who's in college wanting to coach, and that concept came up of now you're a coach, not an athlete. And I was at the same school, which happens a lot, but that was an interesting transition and to learn, what a coach's role is versus a teammate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was very grateful to have opportunity. So
Yeah, that's exactly where those next questions are going. Exactly right. Well, first of all, I'd love, I just want to point out to listeners, listen to the difference in words he uses. When he was applying for the job, when Jason was applying for the job for that fall semester, it was like, well, of course he's going to hire me. I brought you a championship and I've pretty much led the team this past year and things like that. And now the words Jason's using for this January opportunity is, oh, I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful coach came back to me. Like, look at the difference in just wording. That's how you can tell someone's where their mindset and their ego set is. It's what are the words they're using? Expectation. You can have expectations for yourself, but to expect that you're going to be given this job, even though you may think you've earned it, versus, oh, I'm grateful for an opportunity. Like I pray that I get this opportunity so I can prove myself, but nothing's given. So I love the different word choices there as well. It's also interesting to me, Jason, when you were applying for the job in the fall, and you didn't get it. I can imagine, especially the way you described your ego state at that point, some ill will. You mentioned vengeance. I can't believe this is happening. What a mistake. Okay, I'm going to go volunteer at Erskine, almost like begrudgingly. Like I should be the distance coach at Anderson, but I'll go volunteer over here. And in that moment, it's really hard for us to see that maybe this is the best thing that'll ever happen to us. And here, and only in a semester, that is a blink of an eye in our lifetime. In a semester, it changed you. It changed. I mean, it's obvious that it changed you and your mindset and your humbleness towards others, whether it's athletes or other coaches or superior, head coaches, etc. So, and again, hindsight is 2020. So we can look back now because we have experience and be like, oh, thank God I didn't get that job. Like, thank goodness I was able to go to Erskine. Like, you learn so much. Like, I just think that's such a great lesson for us when you're in the moment. I know it's so hard when you're in the moment to go, okay, I know I didn't get what I wanted, but maybe I'm getting what I needed. I'm about to need. And that's what it sounds like this semester at Erskine really was for you. It's what you needed at the time.
Yeah, and it's hard to see in the moment. And then that would happen later in my career too, that I would want this path, but this path was probably best in the long term. And that's something that you try to impart to these, people on your team is
It's
that,
hard. Yeah.
yeah, hey, look, like this injury this semester might be like the worst thing ever, but it's maybe something that's going to make you so much more grateful for what you reach. And a lot of times they're like, oh, you're supposed to say that, coach, or whatever. But being able to give examples like, look, this happened to me, and I think that's the beauty of like a senior athlete speaking to an underclassman, and seeing that like, oh, these guys are now mentoring the younger guys and on the team. And but yeah, no, it definitely changed me a lot. And
Love it.
I haven't talked to John in a while, so I need to reach out to him and kind of tell him that we talked about this, and
Hey,
that's something to be grateful for.
I'm going to it's on recording here, Jason.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need to reach out to him. Absolutely. 100%.
So
Yes, that's your homework from the podcast. See, you become a guest, you get homework. And so maybe you don't want to be a guest on the show, right? All right. So one of my favorite topics to discuss is exactly what you described there. So one day you're an athlete, you're playing Xbox with the boys on the weekend, and then the next day, and it was a semester later, but a blink of the eye, and now you are barking out orders. Hey, we need to hit splits in this. Let's go on this run, and you got to keep this threshold. Blah blah blah. I act like I know how to coach distance runners, but I really don't. But you're still friends with you. You even said it. These are my friends. Like I won championships with some of these kids. Some of the older ones. How did you, or did you, separate yourself, that you're no longer Jason, the teammate of Tommy? Oh, now you're Coach Bryan, the coach of Tommy. How did you do that? How did you navigate that? Did you struggle with that at all?
I think looking back, I maybe did struggle with it, and probably didn't separate myself as much as I should have at times. But yeah, I mean, I think I was a very pretty straightforward, stern captain on the team.
Okay.
He had a nickname for me that I'll just leave out, but
Okay.
captain that to coach that when I got the job. So, and then I tried to, I kept people in line, and they would say, was a little obsessive about it at times when I was a captain. So, not saying anything to like pump myself up, but I think they had that respect that like, okay, he really cares about this, and saw that I did improve, and so they wanted, I think they believed in what we were doing. But yeah, I as far as hanging out and stuff like that, I did not do that as much for sure. We would, the cafeteria had a meal plan, so it was great that we were actually able, after practice, I'd go to dinner sometimes, and we'd sit there and talk and still hang out with a lot of the team. And that was what I think helped that team be very close. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I kind of separated myself as far as like outside of practice a lot. But it wasn't that difficult because I think I had set, a certain standard maybe as a cap, and kind of just went into that coaching role with it.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing it. I mean, you're asking for 30-year-old decisions out of a 22-year-old. You're like, man, yesterday that is my best friend still. But there is a difference in roles and and authority and responsibilities at that point. So yeah, it's really tough, man. I'm glad you're able to navigate that maybe a little easier than some of us others have done that. So you get the job in January. You're back at Anderson. You mentioned you got a master's. So are you doing grad work at this point, or where are we at in the actual career path?
Yeah, so I had actually started my master's right back up. So I
Hmm.
likened it to, you just got off the mat from a fight, 4 years in undergrad, 4.5 maybe for some. Uh, and then you go right back in the ring. And like I just felt like I just got punched right back in the face again with
Mm,
homework, all this stuff. But I got the opportunity to do that. They had just started a master's program at Anderson. So
oh,
all my business professors were the professors for that. So they had encouraged me, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. This is a smart idea to get this knocked out. To be honest with you, I wasn't a grad assistant, so I didn't get any help with that.
mm,
You know, I got a small stipend, and I got to live on campus like in a house, like a coach's house on
mm,
campus, and got a meal plan. So that's
mm.
literally, I didn't get any. Later on, they would pay for grad assistance. I was too early to get that, but yeah, I started grad school, and then I was working at a running store and things like that. And I actually did another throwback to the most recent podcast with the young man. I did my level one when I was in college that semester.
Oh yeah.
So I knocked that out. I went to Chapel Hill and did that my last semester in college. And so I had done that already. Um, and that next year, I would go to the coaching convention for the first time.
Wow.
That next
So do you remember? I have such a fondness for coaching education. Do you remember who your teachers were, your instructors at level one?
He was the throws coach at Clemson.
No, I know he's listening. He's going to beat me
Yes,
up.
yes. He was a jail man for a little while after that. He's coached high school after that a little bit.
Mm.
He is fake. Is it Macca? It's something like Mac.
Glenn McAtee. He is an awesome person. Thank you for jogging
Yeah.
my memory there. We've taught level ones before. We've roommated before at conventions and things. So yeah, that's why I was like, oh no, I'm getting to a point. Something's wrong with my memory. Honestly, it's a little scary to be real honest with you. So yeah, Glenn McAtee, great human being, a great instructor. Yeah. So Glenn, he obviously didn't do your endurance. Who else did we have
Yeah,
there?
Andrew Alden.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I love Andrew. Yeah.
And Seagrave.
I was gonna say maybe you had Lauren. Yep. Okay. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a great class. And then you went to convention the following year. Where would that have been?
Uh, Man, that first year was a struggle. It's funny, you go to those conventions early on and you see and I've always made this comment, this might make some people mad, but you see the people that are getting paid the most, everything's getting paid for at
Hmm.
the convention. It's going on an expense, it's like it's
Hmm. Hmm.
paid from the big universities. And the people who are making the least, the assistant coaches are paying their way to get there. I
Hmm.
remember ordering pizzas to the room, and that's what I ate the first 3 days because I went to a class and they hadn't opened the meal situation, and I wasn't paying. I think it was $54 for a brunch at that hotel.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And so
Yeah.
I ordered a bunch of like Domino's pizzas, and I ate that for like 2 days straight. That was my meal because I couldn't leave because we were out there. I think it was Florida.
What
So
what year what year would it have been?
uh 2008, nine, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so probably the Florida is we basically rotated Florida, Arizona, and San Antonio. So, but I think you're Florida,
I think
right?
it was San Antonio. I think it was San Antonio because I did
Yeah.
fly out there, I believe.
Okay. You brought a great point there, Jason. Because again, the convention is, I tell people it's like my Super Bowl. I mean, I just love it. I am in a hotel with 1,000+ coaches, track coaches, that can't go anywhere. It's all enclosed. And I love that aspect. I get to meet so many new people, reconnect with people. It is my most favorite week in the whole stinking year. Honestly, even over like college nationals and stuff. I truly love the convention for that aspect of 1 week, all coaches. We're just talking about life and their love and their passions. I love it. But you brought up a good point. We get all in our own little bubble, and everything's paid for there. I'm traveling for business, and
Yeah.
other people are traveling for business, so I'm expensing everything, and I have to pay $54 for a brunch. I don't like spending. I know it's not even my money, but I don't like spending that. But it's like, okay, well, that's what the option is.
Yeah.
I sometimes, you brought up a good thing. I forget that there are people who are like, yeah, man, I paid for everything here.
Yeah.
Like I'm paying for every meal here.
Yeah, so my coach ended up, my head coach at the time, he paid for my registration, which is a
Mm,
pretty
hmm.
big fee. I mean, you got a college guy who's making very little money
Yep.
and eating on a meal plan and all that, and just getting into coaching. And then I got a scholarship to the endurance specialist class. I got a
Mm,
scholarship, and so that's great. But then they didn't pay. The scholarship didn't help you get there or pay
right.
for the hotel. And so I paid for the hotel. I paid for
Mm,
the flight, and any food. And so like you're talking over $1,000 at that point when
yeah.
and for somebody who's making that's probably one eighth my yearly salary at that
I
point.
was gonna say that's a couple months of the
Yeah,
salary,
yeah.
right?
So and that was and to be honest with you, my dad, I might get choked up a little bit, but my dad was a huge support through all this stuff. But he ended up that was my Christmas gift. It was like
Oh,
there. And so, I mean, that's something that I think about now and my assistants and stuff like that.
yeah. And shout out to Dad, because I didn't know where you're going to go with that, because I could easily have seen you say, yeah, Dad's like, hey, Jason, what are you doing? Like, go get a job. You're working on a master's in business. You have a degree from a great university. Go get a job. Go to the bank. They'll hire you. Go do that. What are you doing with this track stuff? It's over, Jason. Come on. But instead, he doubled down, because he obviously had supported you through high school and college and things like that. And he was like, "Oh, this is what you want to do? All right, man. I'll make it your Christmas gift. I'll take care of you." And that's amazing. Shout out to Dad. Like, what a
Well,
supporter of dreams and passions.
and he's definitely going to listen to this. So I know he's going to listen to this. He's been asking me all week, like, what is it? What is it called? What is it called? But
We'll have at least one listener. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Dad.
But he as many times as he did tell me have a plan B, have a plan B, and I was like, oh no, this is it. I'm going to be the best college coach ever. Um, as much as he did that, he also was, supporting me through like
Yeah,
not making a lot of money for a long time. And,
right.
I was lucky, I'm blessed enough to have that family situation, but
Mm,
I mean, he supported me a ton and helped me get to where I am now. And I think not a lot of people have that
right.
blessing. But as much as he did say have a plan B, he supported me.
He
So
supported Plan A, though.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
it. So why did you're a smart guy, Jason? I'd love to explore. Uh, using a lot of resources, Dad's resources, etc., your own time resources and money resources to go to this convention easily. Like, no one would have blamed you if you'd have said, hey, look, man, I make like 12 grand a year. I just can't afford it. When I can't afford it, I'll go. Absolutely. But I just can't right now. But you did. What was why was that important to you? And now looking back specifically at this first convention, what did it like, did it pay off? Like, whether it's networking or education or just understanding more about the sport and the profession of coaching? Talk to us about why that was so important, and did it actually pay off for you?
yeah. And looking back, I didn't really know it at the time, but I was kind of doing what I do now is you got to be a presence in this industry. Like, so like at that meet or at the convention or at this, event or on this committee, like your name, if you want to get, move up in the industry, your name has to keep coming up as far as like, oh, he's here again. Hey, how you doing? The movers and shakers in our region, as far as like the larger schools, getting to know those coaches and getting a relationship with, Mike Curcio at App State or, I was straight distance at that point. I was only in distance world, which we all know when you're young, your throws
Mhm.
coach are all throws. I need to meet all the best throws coaches. That's all that matters. I'm going to all the throws talks. It was years later at the convention I started. I'm going to the hammer,
Yeah,
discussion.
good for you. Yeah,
I'm going to this and like, being a head coach that makes you open up. You gotta
sure.
fill this role. You gotta fill this. But I think back then it helped me to kind of I just kept showing up at things oh, there's that kid again from Anderson, and I guess he's going to be around, because there's coaches that move around, and you disappear, you see him one year and not the next. But yeah, I think that was my big thing is that was where everybody was at in the world that I wanted to be a part of, and so I needed to be there too. And I still make that explanation to my wife sometimes now. We got to be there. Everybody's got
Gotta
to
be there. They
yeah,
expect me to
exactly.
be there, honey.
Why another thing? Why another weekend? Why this? I got to. Everybody's there. But that's my thing with the convention now is that like, it's near Christmas. I got young kids, and I want to be there, but then it's and so it's my kind of I go back and forth every year
Yeah,
now. So, but different stage of life, and
yeah,
I
for sure.
enjoy a lot of aspects of it. But it is yeah, back then it was just a blast. I mean, I'd walk in the room and like you said, like Holloway and Ben Lanana and like all these like, oh my gosh, like and I'm just geeking out. And um, I was definitely guilty of that. And then
Oh
like
yeah.
all kids when they're young of like, wow, like that guy and this and you do look at the you look at the polos. You got to look at the polos.
Yeah.
You get in the elevator, you're like, oh, and I so it was a blast. It was fun and you know, got really familiar with Domino's Pizza, but other than that, it was really fun.
I like how you brought up about you got to be there, you got to be seen. When this airs a few weeks ago, one of the podcasts that I also listened to is from a guy named John Acuff. He's awesome. He has a podcast, All It Takes Is a Goal. I highly recommend it for you, for any coaches out there. And the specific episode that I was listening to on the way in today was like 5 great quotes or something like that. And one of the tangents, if you will, that he was going on was, oh, I know what it was, is when these big time people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and all these people say, follow your passion. He's like, that's such a terrible advice. He's like, it's all rich people that tell you that advice. And they don't tell you that they actually worked in coal mining or smelting, or, they busted their butt before they became rich and now get to go do their passions, right? And what he was talking about is that the reason they say go follow your passion is because no one wants to admit the effect of luck has on our lives, right? We don't want to admit, we kind of say yeah luck, but we don't want to admit that sometimes we just got lucky. Now his real point here was about the more you work and the more you hustle, the more you learn, the luckier you get. We've all kind of heard that the harder you work, the
Yeah,
luckier you get, right? But I think that showing up is not just showing. You didn't just show up and was like, well, here I am, the kid from Anderson, right? It was like, oh, I'm showing up and I'm going to the classes and I'm talking to my peer group in the distance. And lucky things happen to you at that point. You get picked for this committee, or you get picked for this, or you get this job, etc. So I just kind of love that, like showing up. Like I'm just kept showing up, volunteering. Can I help? Let's talk. I want to learn more about how you do things as a head coach, etc. And you get luckier that way too, because you're preparing, you're doing the hard work. So I absolutely love that, and I think the convention is phenomenal for that alone. There's some amazing educational seminars and talks from coaches that are awesome. Obviously, there's a lot of committee work and legislation things that are going on, but I've always said it's the hallway talks. It's the sitting down at those tables and oh, you're in my conference, or you used to be in my conference, or hey, did you run against my team? Like I've seen you before, and just having these conversations and learning about people is really needle moving activities for your career and for you as a person. You get to build up new friendships and stuff that way. So highly recommend convention. We're back in Denver this year. And spoiler alert for anybody that knew that what we did last year at the convention in Denver, that either participated, thank you, or wanted to participate, thank you, or you should have participated. Thank you. We're going to do it again. We're going to do the Connections podcast live at the convention again. So Jason, if you're there, you got to pop in. It was a lot of fun. We had an absolute blast doing a live podcast there at the USTFCCCA convention. So, okay, no more commercial. Jason, where are we at? So you're at Anderson, you're doing grad work. You're not a grad assistant. You're paying for grad work. You're the distance coach. How long do we stay there? What's where are we at here in life?
yeah. So I actually ended up staying there. I was blessed to walk into a really, really good athlete that they had recruited after I was done and had gone to Erskine that semester. She had started Whitney Bischoff from Georgia, and she had come in, and so I kind of walked into coaching her. And I tell this to my guys team now, even though like I think really hard thing to figure out is you're an athlete. Not everybody receives coaching the same way that you did.
Right.
I had no idea how to coach a women's team, and I had
Mhm.
never really paid attention to our women's team that much. I was really focused on our men's team getting better, and
Right.
that I was on and all that. So coming in and coaching women for the first time, I had to learn their, what's a fast pace, like what's good, what's not, and
Mm.
learning the basics of that, but also just how to talk to, and encourage, a whole other side of the team. And I think that, you know, definitely got off to a rough start as far as like the workouts that we did, because I pushed them way too hard. Um,
Mm.
and made them do some things that now I look back on, I'm like, golly, like that was a brutal workout. But um, she was one that I think, you kind of look back and having like early success as a coach. I mean, she was one that helped me, you know, help her get to the national level in cross country and be an All-American as a sophomore,
Wow. Wow.
and make it to nationals and outdoors and indoors over the years, and like um, kind of helped me figure out like, okay, I'm not too bad at this. I'm helping. I think this is working to a degree. I think I'm can be successful in this career. But she was a huge part of that and allowing to trust in me. And she's in the Hall of Fame now at Anderson. We went back last fall and inducted her in
Ah,
the Hall of Fame. She's now in our conference's Hall of Fame, the first athlete at Anderson to ever be in the conference Hall of Fame.
wow.
And that's cool. And still, she'll text me. My girls team made nationals this past fall, and had a text from her right when I got in the van afterwards. Our first time ever getting a team to nationals on the women's side, in my career, and she was, so proud of you, like, so
Wow.
excited. So, but I was blessed to coach her and some very good athletes while I was at Anderson. But I was there for 3.5 years. So started in January, and then I had 3 years, full years
Hmm.
after that. And we won some conference championships in cross country on the women's side. And, came close on the men's side my last year. But I got to the point where I kind of put an ultimatum on myself that I need to branch out. I need to experience something different. So I've
Hmm.
been at Anderson to some degree for 8 years now,
Hmm.
undergrad, graduate, and coaching. And I loved it, and it was a place for me. And I think I excelled there as a person. It was a perfect fit. But I needed to try something different and branch out and experience something else. And so that's what I put an ultimatum on myself and started looking for jobs. Actually, College of Charleston came up that they were needing a new men's distance coach, which I thought would be, it's a mid-major Division I. It's a level up, and it's Charleston. From South Carolina originally, so I know Charleston is a beautiful city. And again, I had an ego a little bit going into it of like I could do better than what they're doing right now. I mean, golly, they're not very good. I had no idea what you know restrictions they had as far as scholarship.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, when I got there, I figured out it was a lot harder than I thought. But yeah, I mean, the coach that had been there that was leaving reached out to me, and ended up going down and interviewing. Um, and yeah, that was my next step. So I moved on to College of Charleston in 2011, 2012, I think 2012, and went down there to coach the men's team.
You just described when I look at the body of coaching track and field, one of the problems, and that's judgment. You know, one of our we started with a controversial topic. Let's bring another one in. When you look at letsrun.com, uh, there's only one thread that I pay attention to on letsrun.com every year. It's a traditional thread, and it's the coaching thread, because I like to know who's going where and all that kind of stuff, right? And I am floored, and I know it's anonymous people, and so people are kind of talking out their wazoo because they can, no one has a name there. But I'm floored when people say, oh, I can't believe such and such university isn't a national champion. They're in this state and they're in this conference, and all they need is da da da, and they would win it all. And it's like, oh, you have no clue what goes on there. You don't know, honestly, if they have zero scholarships for distance, if we're talking distance here specifically,
Yeah.
if they have zero scholarships for there, or that they have that they're a landlocked, like a cement university, so there's no trails and things for distance. Like it's hard to attract distance runners to those type of activities, places, etc. So it's just amazing how many people cast judgment when they have no idea of the situation. They have no idea. Even let's take it another step forward. Let's say the university is perfect place, location, tons of scholarship for distance runners. You have no idea if that coach is going through things personal health wise, relationships, and that's why they haven't recruited to the level that they could or should or that they want to. It just amazes me that people think that there's someone doing the job and that person is okay with mediocrity. Like they think they're like, oh yeah, we're 8th in our conference. Oh, that's exactly where I wanted to be. This is exactly how things are, or I want them to be. This is perfect. And it's like every coach wants to do better, but especially in our sport, a lot of coaches are handcuffed, whether it's budget, uh, um, priority from the athletic department, scholarship, etc. And it floors me when other coaches will judge someone else. It's just amazing to me. And at the end of the day, because we all think that those judgments are all about like they should be winning conference, they should be winning nationals, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, winning's hard. There's only one team that gets to do it. So to think that there's what in Division 3, there's 350, Division 2, there's like 280, 290, there's 200, let's call it 300. There's 300 teams. Only one gets to win. And if you ask the anonymous people on Let's Run, at least, the other 299 should have won. Everybody should have won because they're the answer.
If they were there, they would have won.
That's what I'm saying. They're the answer. Yeah, exactly. They're the answer. If I was there, we would do X and Y and Z and we would win it all. And it's like, dude, you talk about bad ego. That's bad ego. It's amazing to me. So yes, you're looking from the outside and you're like, oh, it's Division 1. I did the same thing, by the way. And I started coaching high school and moved up to Division 1. In fact, my whole goal was to get to the SEC. And I thought, oh, when I get to the SEC, oh, it's so much easier.
Oh, it'll be easy. Yeah, exactly.
When I went from Ball State to Mississippi State, so at Ball State, when I called a kid to recruit, I had to explain where Ball State was and all this stuff. It's a great school, and it's like I had to explain it. Unless I was calling Indiana. Actually, some Indiana kids I had to call and tell them who Ball State was. They had no clue. When I got blessed to have the opportunity to coach at Mississippi State, I thought, oh, no matter who I call, they're going to know Mississippi State. We're in the SEC. We play on Saturday nights, blah, blah, blah. In football, we're going to know. And most did. Not everybody, but most did. But then I still remember the very first recruit that I recruited. Great quarter miler and set the indoor high school 400-meter record as a senior. And I call him and I was like, his name was Elsie. I was like, Elsie, so who are your top 5? And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm looking at Florida, Texas, USC, and I think Baylor was the other one. And I was like, oh, crap. I mean, I still remember my heart just dropping. I was like, wait a minute. Mouse, the guy that's a mentor of mine coaching. Like he's on a pedestal to me. I got to go beat him for this recruit. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in Starkville. I got to beat LA. Yeah. I've got to beat perennial powerhouse Texas. Baylor, quarter miler, it didn't get easier, my friend. It got harder. Like it was a real big gut check, punch to my gut and my ego of like, oh, you better, all the hustle that you did to get here, well, you got to double it down and do even more hustle to win these kids to start Vegas, baby. So the judgment to me is just the audacity of it is amazing. So you get to the College of Charleston and then you learn all the things that are handcuffing College of Charleston, scholarship, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. How did that go as far as going into the quote unquote next level? Because I don't really like saying D3, D2, they're different levels. Yeah. I'm not necessarily now learning more about each level. I want to say an other level, but it's a different level. So you go to the Division 1 level. How did that pan out for you? Little ego check or did you go in and win the national title? Maybe you came in and win the national title. I don't know, Jason.
Well, if you look back, we did not win the national title. We were trying to not finish last in the conference.
Sure. Hey, most of us have been there, so we get it. We get that.
There was a little guy named Paul Chalimo in our conference that year. So I walked into that conference. He was Greensboro. And so, but yeah, that'll humble you a lot. Yes. And I will always say that I love the guys at College Charleston that year. I knocked heads with some guys. We had some coming to Jesus talks. But my big thing too, I went into that job with what I'd done at Anderson. And like, it's because of me. We won these conference championships. I got to go national. I got to go in the 16th and blah, blah, blah. I have a guy in 800 and that. And like, I just went into it with this thought of like, yeah, that, thank goodness I'm here to rescue this men's team. And I thought I had it figured out. And so, yeah, and so it takes getting humbled again, because you go back to your ways sometimes. And so I remember I came in and I was very like, I was trying to do things. I was trying to be flashy. Like I remember our head coach gave us this Nike hat and it had the new logo on the side, but it didn't have anything on the front. And I was like, oh, nobody knows who this logo is. I don't want to put, and I think the girl that I was dating at the time was working at a soccer shop that had an embroidery thing. And like, I was like, can you embroider Charleston cross country on it? And something little, I just wanted to, people to know who we were. And so I did that. And like, I did a couple other things where like we were trying to get access to this property to be able to run on these trails. And I remember I went out there one day on my own and they ended up like coming out there and be like, what are you doing? And all this. And I got back to my head coach and like she sat down with me after a few months and was like, look, you think you have all this figured out. You're going about this. You're putting new stuff on the hat. You're trying to be special. Like, what are you like? It's not working out. And like, we don't have to have you here next year because it is not working out right now. You're going above my head, and a lot of it wasn't really intentional. It was just me trying to, make moves and do things, and bad communication, and I think we misunderstood each other a lot. But that hurt. That conversation hurt to have. And again, I think it was how I received it, and it's sometimes not how kids on my team receive those conversations. But if you receive it in a certain way where you're like, wow, okay, I messed up. What did I do? And reflect on it and say, what did I do? Not like, oh, you don't even know, And I think that luckily I was at the point where I was able to reflect, and because it hurt, that conversation, I was like, man, I messed up. Like, she's serious. And like, that's not what I meant. And like, oh my gosh. And it ended up from then on, like I remember we went on a recruiting trip and it was just her and I in a van for like 3 hours going to the state meet and coming back. And we talked about goals in life and her path and coaching family and things like that. And like, we got to know each other a lot better. And I talked to her on a weekly basis, almost every month at least, and ask advice on things, and love seeing her now at meets and things like that. And that second year we went into it, it was a different relationship, and she trusted me more, and we had some more success, and ended up leading to my next job, and probably the best recommendation letter I've ever gotten, as far as her saying that I don't want to write this letter. That's kind of how she let it off. She said, I don't want him to leave. And so
we almost titled the podcast the Gill Athletics Shout Out podcast, because I love shouting out other coaches. We keep saying her, but we got to give a shout out.
Yeah, Amy Seago.
Seago.
She's been at College of Charleston for I think 20 years now. They actually got a track, municipal track built recently, and she's grown that program a lot over the years. And there are a lot of issues with having a downtown Charleston school that has to deal with it. People don't understand some of the things that they go through and that they have to deal with it. I mean, it's the most beautiful city in the U.S., if not in the world. I mean, and I think there's a tourist magazine that every year comes out and it's in the top 3 in the world cities to visit. But that comes along with people coming there maybe for the wrong reasons,
right?
And getting distracted, and it's difficult. There's a lot of challenges people don't realize. Like, oh, like, how do you not have success? Best city in the world.
Right.
Other things to do than do track and field.
Right.
And it's hard to keep focus, and we all know that keeping focus with this age group is already difficult. And so,
right.
But she's been a great mentor. She is brilliant as far as like, advice and things she's seen, and administration and dealing with administration, and mental health and all that stuff. And she's been a lot of help with me becoming a head coach and asking her advice and humbling me, and thankfully working with me and not just firing me on the spot that day.
Yeah. But that's what I was going to say, shout out to Amy. We talk a lot about the positive impact that our coaches are making on young people today. And we've delved into a lot of the subject about how do we prepare assistant coaches to be better head coaches one day, for the ones that do want to be there and get that opportunity. What I love about that story with Amy is you touched it right on there. It's like, oh, she didn't have to have that meeting with you. You know, she could have been, when she was dead serious when she was like, hey, we don't have to have you here. Well, there were a lot of resumes when you applied. We can go find someone else. Pretty simple. That may be actually a sad part of our industry, but we won't tackle that maybe today. But instead, like, she trusted of like, hey, I'm going to have this conversation with you, and I'm going to trust that you're going to receive it and do better, and had that conversation with you. And I just, what a shout out. Cause I mean, Amy, what you did, if you're listening, what you did is you helped him become the person he is today, and the person that he'll become next season, and 10 seasons from now, and 20 seasons. So what a great impact you made on a coach, which means he's having a greater impact on athletes. So, I mean, that's just a direct correlation, kind of that family tree, if you will, of people that she's affecting, young people that she's affecting positively, because she affected you positively by having a very difficult conversation. I kind of think all interviews should be 3 hours in a van. I think that's how all interviews should be. Like, let's spend some real time. We get, 30 minutes to an hour with people on interviews, and, and you're in an interview. So, okay, I'm supposed to say this, I'm supposed to act this way, all these kind of things. And in reality, if we would just be ourselves, both the interviewer and the interviewee, by the way, if we would just be ourselves and find out if we actually can mesh and do this job together or not, we'd be better off. It's like, oh, you're a really smart guy. We just don't jive. We've been in this van for 3 hours and I did not have a good time. I just can't see us going on. That's the best thing for both of you. You get to go your way and the other person gets to go their way, and tension didn't happen because you faked your way through an interview. So I think to all you head coaches out there that are interviewing, I highly encourage you, 3 hours in a van with each of your interviewees, and you'll find the real assistant coaches that you should have there. So shout out to Amy, man. I love that story. That's an awesome experience. Where I had a question. So how did it go as far as, you started, you're continuing to work on your ego, man, which I love. You continue to work on your bad ego, which I love. You're continuing chiseling away there. After you spent your seasons there, where did we go next after that?
Yeah, so that was where actually I ended up, the girl that I was dating at that soccer shop that embroidered the hat for me, I ended up asking her to marry me, and we got married in Charleston. And about 6 months later, I had some, I was working at a Fleet Feet Sports down there, and was heading towards being a manager. I kind of already was a manager, but they were a newer store, so they kind of hadn't named anybody yet. And they were going to be opening another store, and they had talked to my wife and I about opening that store at a second location, and they'd have to be full time. And so I had some resumes out at the time too, and to a larger Division I school and a smaller Division II school in North Carolina. And my boss at the running store told me, like, you got to make a decision. Is it coaching, or is it, or is it managing a running? I love doing that, and it had a lot of perks to it, and it was fun. But my shout out to my wife. We sat down, talked about it, because we're in a new family, and she said, could you see your life without coaching, or could you see your life without the running store? And that made my decision. So I ended up pursuing those two. I interviewed at that larger school. I interviewed here at Catawba. I wanted that one at the larger school because their resources, like you said, you're just like, man, everybody's going to know, and they're going to, it's just going to be so much easier. And it was, they had bukus of money and resources, and I would have been the men's assistant like I was doing at College Charleston. And I was like top 4 finalists for that job, and then I was a top 3 finalist here, and then they offered me the job here before I had heard back. So they offered me the job here at Catawba to be the first full-time cross-country only coach that they've ever had. And I ended up not hearing back from that larger school for a while, and Amy Seago at College Charleston, who knew the athletic director here and had written a recommendation letter here at Catawba, she called me. She's like, hey, the AD at Catawba called me and said, if you don't give them a decision, in the next 2 or 3 days, they're going to move on, because they had offered me the job, and I was kind of waiting on this better opportunity. So I kind of pushed the other one, and I emailed that coach, and he got back to me. I'll never forget, the email was very misleading at the beginning. It was like, well, I'm, pleased to tell you that I think you should take that other opportunity. And I was just like, oh, And like, it was very misleading.
The first line, pleased to
Yeah,
tell you, you're like,
it
oh,
faked me
hell
out.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it faked me out bad. I was like, oh. And so I'm like, I guess, and at the time I was like, I guess I'll go to Catawba.
Sure.
Um, because it was a jogging club, pretty much is what it was when I got here. And so I ended up coming here and accepting a job at Catawba. We moved here to North Carolina. My wife didn't have a job when we got here and struggled to find one for the first couple months, even at that time. And um, it was difficult transition, but I got to make it my own thing. And very quickly I found out that that other job would have been very stressful and probably got me out of coaching. They had won several championships in a row, and that was the main priority for the head coach to say, whoever comes in next, we've got to keep this going. Um, and they did not end up winning that next year. And, that staff, the person they had hired, didn't stay, and so it was a blessing. And I got the job here. I got to kind of make it my own. We were dead last in the conference the first year. Well, we were second to last. That was our win goal. Don't be last. Beat someone. And so there was nothing but going up. And so a lot of people, people tell you that when you get the job, and you're like, yeah, that's, you're trying to feel better. You get to make it your own. That's neat. But I did, and I got to kind of get things going and start that, culture, and we got it moving in a good direction. And we had some, for the time, really good recruits come in for us and changed kind of the performance side. Now the culture side took a little bit longer,
Well,
but
and let's pause right there, because I want to spend our last time on Catawba and build, because what you're doing there, you're describing it aptly as very unique. Building the whole, putting your fingerprint on it, building it up. But a lot of that is not just building. A lot of people think about that as just building. Oh, I got to recruits. There's a whole more to it. Recruits, culture, facilities, again, priorities in the athletic department, et cetera. So I want to spend our last time on that. So before we get to to Catawba and what you've been doing there and what you're doing today and what you got you excited in the future. Where are you? I always love to know about coaching education. You mentioned taking level 1 earlier. You've done conventions and gone to there. Where are you coaching education wise? And when I ask that, I mean that both formally and informally. So formally, did you go on to do any level 2? You mentioned you did USTF CCCA, the endurance section, maybe Altus, any of the formal ones. And then just as important, where are you at informally with coaching education, with mentors, someone you can call to bounce ideas off of, whether it's X's and O's, or, hey, how did you deal with this situation? I've got a tough situation over here. Where are you at coaching education wise for you as you head into Catawba?
yeah, I think that was obviously Amy at College Charleston was a big mentor. I had worked a couple of camps in App State. Mike Curcio was one of them that I'd really kind of picked his brain a little bit at some of the camps, and some of his athletes asked, a lot of what they do, and learned some different ways of going about it, because not everybody goes about training and laying out the week and the micro macro the same way. And so I think Mike Curcio up at App State, and then actually a few kind of peers, Carson Blackwelder at USC Upstate. We kind of came through all that together, getting head coaching jobs and stuff like that. But as far as formal education, I did not do level 2. It never really worked out to where I could go for a week and afford it, to be honest with you. And at that time, and I wasn't going to be able to pay for it out of this budget that we had here. And so I did go to convention every year. I took a few classes here and there at the conventions over the years with College of Charleston, because they did have the means to do that. And that was a blessing that they were able to pay for me to get to those conventions and also take some classes. So I took a few more. I think I took a couple of the more general program, like running the program, those courses with USTF CCCA. I think it was more generalized, like how to run a meet maybe and things like that. And then, I kind of was able that second year at College Charleston to take training over myself and make it my own, and kind of learn from a lot of what Amy had done with the girls team. And so I had evolved a little bit as far as that, but I think the mentor side was I had gone to Brevard distance running camp. I tried to get places in the summer that, like, you know, different than a level 2 would be they hire me instead of me paying them, you know. So,
Right.
that would be, that was helpful. But seeing other coaches at these camps sitting around at night and talking about their team, and high school coaches being some of the most valuable insights, because some of these guys that, in the 60s and 70s that have been around forever, and like, oh, I trained with Prefontaine, or I ran with Frank Shorter, or, and hearing those stories. um, I think going to these running camps in the summer, and sitting down and having conversations like you would have in the band, but around a campfire, or around the gym or something like that, was valuable. It was very valuable, and helped me kind of meet people, and get mentors. So that's kind of where I was at that point, going into Catawba, and my old head coach at Anderson as well. Because when I got here, we, of course, just first time head coach, just ease into it. We hosted conference my first year here. So I never hosted a cross country in my life.
Oh, dude.
The second week I got here, and then we had to host conference at the end of the year. So my head coach now is coming to me for the conference championship. So that was unique and fun. I poked down him a little bit about that. I mean, they crushed us, so that was easy for him to not worry about it too much. But yeah, so that was a little bit of where I was at the time.
So as you ease into Catawba here, as you ease into hosting the conference meet right off the bat, yeah, that's a tough feat when you're a 10-year veteran at your school. Right off the bat, my friend. Wow. You probably were still trying to figure out where was the cross country course when you got there.
Where do we get I remember the guy at the time, things were really informal that here at the time, and he handed me like an envelope full of papers and sticky notes, and he was like, here's the guy for your t-shirts, here's the guy for trophies, here's the contact for the park, and then here's the, so it was just like a bunch of sticky notes with phone numbers.
Wow.
I had to go out there and make those words. So it was fun.
The good news is you survived.
Yeah, no, it taught me a lot, and
Yeah.
it was, and again, I got to make it what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. So tell us, what is the state of Catawba at that point? You mentioned, you obviously have a conference meet, so you're in a conference, things like that, but track team, just a full staff, is it just you? Tell us a little bit, kind of set the picture of what Catawba is. What year is this?
It was 2014.
Okay, so almost 10 years, 9 years ago now. Give us set the table for us. Give us the scene of what Catawba cross country track and field is in 2014.
Yeah, when I always point, I have a picture in my office where I point to the first team I had up on the wall there, and it was
cool.
We had nine athletes in the team total. We had 4 girls, 5 guys, so not a full team, not even able to field a team on the women's side. And I always tell people our number 5 guy was a linebacker that got kicked off the football team. Not kicked off, but he left the football team to join the cross country jogging club at the time.
But for real, the linebacker.
Yeah, he was a linebacker. He was a good 225. And the only thing bigger than his legs was his heart.
Oh, dude, that's such a coach thing. I love that. That's awesome.
He still works here. He works at Catawba. He's over like the volunteer. He's a volunteer coordinator.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I eat lunch with him once a week.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so I had just me. I ended up, I was the only coach. I could drive a van, and we could get everybody in one van. So I didn't need anybody really. And the school was needing to grow a little bit and use athletics to do that, like a lot of smaller private schools do. So they wanted me to come in and build the cross country team up. We had no track team at the time. We had no track on the horizon. I heard it mentioned when I got the job, but that kind of was all that happened that first year. That's all I heard about it was when I first got the job. So we went to some track meets in the spring. We could go to 5 since we didn't have a track program. And we did that. And I remember first meeting I had with all the athletes, they asked me, are we going to the region meet? Which is an all comers in cross country. So, if you can make it there, you go there. And the funny thing is that first semester, I kept hearing from everybody on campus that, the old head coach he used to brag about how they had been to 8 straight regional championships. They had made 8 straight region championships. And I was like, you just got to secure vans. That's all you got to do to get there. So,
you got to write the press release that way.
yeah. He was really good at hyping them up. But
that's called marketing, Jason.
Yeah. So we it was in Montebello, so it was 8 hours away.
Oh
And they're
yeah,
like, are we
beautiful.
gonna be able to go to that? And I was like, we're definitely going because we're gonna be there every year and we're gonna be a player. And like I didn't know how long that would take. I thought it would take less time, but I wanted to set that standard. And that trip was a disaster. Like a kid literally got a stress fracture, I think, on the warm up. And he was like, wow, something popped in my leg. I can't. And
Oh, no.
then I had a kid throw up on the way to the meet. He had food poisoning. So then our men's team, which was a blessing, we didn't score as a men's team and we did score as a women's team at regionals that year. And so we had like 3 guys finish. And I think we would have finished last if we would have finished as a team. So it was lucky that we didn't probably finish as a team. But that meet was a disaster. And yeah, it kind of set the bar for the next year. Like we can only go up from here, guys. But yeah, that was the state of Catawba at the time. It was not, the school wasn't very healthy, financially, and I think they were. We had a new AD who was trying to do some exciting things, but you know, struggling to get things accomplished, and so it wasn't a great when I stepped in.
So when you're in a situation like that, there's a million things you can do to make the program better. There's a million different ideas and thoughts and actions that you can do. But kind of the 80-20 rule, there's probably about 3 things that like. We have to start doing these 3 things and accomplish these 3 things really well. If we don't get to number 99 on the list, we'll still be okay. But if we don't do number 1, 2, or 3, we're in trouble. As you start, understand the landscape of what's in front of you, that regional meet and things like that, what were the 2 or 3 things that was like, okay, I know I need to accomplish these tasks at a very high level for us to grow within our goals?
Yeah, I think the main thing was setting expectations as far as practice and
Mm,
just the basics of like you need to show up to practice, you need to be on time to practice. We're going to practice. I mean, that was not a given.
mm,
I think and another shout out, he's no longer with us, but the head coach, Bill Haggerty, that was here before. He was an older gentleman. He had kind of been there a long time. He was a great guy, but he had kind of just, I mean, again, the things, his life and where he was at that point, he
mhm,
didn't put a lot of focus in. He didn't put a lot of time. He kind of just, whoever showed up, he was there to help him, and he was very, very good at the support side. And if somebody, had a mom in the hospital or somebody's aunt died, he was going to be there. And like
mhm.
I learned that from him because he was around a little bit after I got the job. And he was very good at that. But the program had been left kind of to just kind of do its own thing for a while.
Mhm.
So nothing bad, but just kind of just
Yeah.
these kids had just been left alone for a while. And so setting that precedent of like practice is at this time, we're going to practice this many times. This is the expectation. That was huge. I bought new uniforms and I bought them shoes for the first time ever. And they were like, wow. And I think that to a certain level, you start to feel one of the girls, she said she expected to feel like she was at a college program when she went to college, and she didn't feel like that when she first
Is
got
that pride? And again,
there.
some people have challenged me that when I say ego is not bad, bad ego is bad, but pride would be my example of like, okay, you can give me examples of good pride and bad pride, can't you? Like
Yeah,
pride's not bad, bad
not
pride
being
is bad.
not being prideful, but having pride in what you do.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Feeling legitimate, feeling like you're invested in, feeling like you matter, and feeling like I mean, it's cross country. I mean, they're not having homecoming cross country meets in high school. I mean, at a lot of places, or if anywhere.
Hmm,
But
hmm,
like we're already kind of the group that's like, oh yeah, they go run. It can't be that hard. And
hmm.
it doesn't have a lot of respect. Our sport of track and field, every
Right,
4 years, people care about it, but after
right.
that, they don't as a general public. So you have to instill, be pride, have pride in your sport, and have
Yeah,
pride in what you do. You're a college, like you said, you're a college athlete, no matter what.
right.
A lot of people get to do that, and so I bought them uniforms, and I bought them shoes, and not a lot of shoes, one pair. Here you go,
Yeah.
But and then the other thing I think um, was recruiting. We just had to get better athletes, better runners, and people that the sport mattered to them, and it was a priority. And we were hit and miss the first couple of years because you're recruiting to what you have. I remember sitting down with a young man who came in and helped us a lot. He even, how's your team? How is horrible? We're terrible. He's like, whoa, really? I was like, yeah, that's why we need you. We need you to come in, help us out. And I didn't mean that bad against anybody here. I just meant we just weren't very good. That's why we're talking to you. You can change it around, and so we needed to get better athletes too. I mean, when it comes down to it, when you have a guy running 10:30 in the 2 mile, or you have a guy running 9:30 in the 2 mile, there's a lot of intangibles, but having a better athlete to start with is always a little bit better. But that's
Jason, I hope as the host here that I'm doing a good job of helping you share your story and painting the pictures for our listeners, because what you just described there, I feel like this spectrum of going all the way back to Anderson of this, well, of course he's going to hire me. Of course I'm going to get a job. I brought you championships. All the way over to now this side of the spectrum where you look at a recruit and instead of saying, yeah, we're good. Yeah, I'm the best coach for you, or I'm the best coach there is. We're going to be, whether you sign or not, we're going to be national champions here, boss. But instead, the bad ego dropped, the humility showed up, and you're like, yeah, we're not very good. I mean, we need you. Like, this is about you, kid. We need you. Like the almost transformation of your, I'm not sure the word here, but the transformation of how you carried yourself, thought of others is remarkable to this point, Jason. I mean, from really I kind of get this picture of I don't know that I would have liked Jason back in Anderson and Erskine days. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I'd have avoided Jason at convention. I'm like, hey, Jason's just going to tell me how great they're doing. And by the way, they were 7th in their conference, all this stuff. And now it's like, oh man, Jason's going to be real and open and authentic and honest with me when I talk to him. I say, I just hope, this is some of the responsibility I have as the host here. I just hope that people are hearing listen to the change in words. Go back and listen to the first 15, 20 minutes of the words he was using to describe himself back then. And now look at the actions and the words that you're using today, Jason. That story, that seemed like a very kind of throwaway story. Like, oh yeah, we had a recruit and I just told them we weren't very good because that was the truth. That story shows a lot about your character development through these really short amount of years. By the way, you're not 60 here. We're not getting ready to retire. You still got a long career ahead of you. I'm just so impressed and proud of you for the transformation that you have occurred. And I know your wife has spoken into that transformation. Your dad and parents and mentors, your old coach Anderson have been certainly Amy has been a part of that development of oh, you know what? I'm not the best. By the way, I'm never going to be the best. What is the best, by the way, coaching track and field? I don't even know what that is. I really don't. No one wins national titles every year and has no transfers and all have 4.0 GPA. No one has that. That would be the best, but we're going to be the best that we can be and serve our young kids. And that's what you're doing at a much better way today than you were yesterday. And that is all we can ask, is get better every day. I'm just so impressed, Jason, really am.
Thank you. Well, what you just said, getting better every day, that's kind of what we ask of our athletes. And so that's something that, I mean, we're all on a journey in our lives. And I think
bingo,
coaches get really frustrated with athletes when they don't have a level of maturity that they think they should have, but it takes experiences for them to get there. And
they're on their own journey.
Yeah, I'm very frustrated.
They're on their own journey.
Very frustrated with freshmen a lot of times, but they don't know what they don't know. And and I have to sometimes step back, and my assistant coaches and I talk about it a lot. And they wouldn't make these decisions if they were mature, but they can't be mature without making these decisions.
Oh, wait, say that again. Hold up. I feel like that was like a truth bomb right there. Say that again.
I mean, they can't be, they want them to be mature, and they can't be mature. If they make these, I don't know. I can't really. It's one.
Hold on, we got to get this right. I believe you said someone's going to tweet me at this right now that you're listening to, so we get this right. We want them to be mature as freshmen in this example, but they can't be mature without making those mistakes. Yeah, dude. A lot of us coaches, if we just remembered that, we would be able to let go of some of the stress. I mean, we get stressed. I'm a parent of a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I get stressed and angry. Why aren't they doing this? And I forget, like, oh, first of all, they're 12 and 9. Second of all, they're not going to become a great adult if they don't make these kind of
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
I think it's a little
Yeah.
bit of our, I don't know, kind of ego state this would be, but not Napoleon, some kind of complex of like, oh, but I'm their savior, I'm their coach, or I'm their dad. If they would just listen, they would live a perfectly great life if they would just listen. And it's like, well, that's not true at all. Actually, you have to go through those hardships, those bad decisions, those things that you don't have any control over happening to you, and overcome them to become the person that you are today and the person I am today, etc. So that was a truth bomb right there, brother. Man, wow. So give us where
Yeah, I
we
love
are.
metaphors. So,
What's that?
I love metaphors. So truth bomb.
That was I was loved it. That was great. 204 episodes, and no one's ever said it that way, my friend. I love it. So don't put pause on the future. Don't step into the future here. So, but give us now today, 2022, 2023. What does Catawba look like? You had 9 kids, a linebacker as your number 5. Shout out to that guy. Is that still what you're doing today?
No, no. So we added track and field, and I literally have a 60-page write-up that I wrote up the plan, salaries, coaches, scholarships, budgets, state of track and field in North Carolina and the Southeast, and what we could bring in and all that stuff. And we added track and field. They decided to go with that plan in 2017, 2018. Because we aligned with what the school needed. We needed more people, and they saw track and field as a way to do that. And so that's one of the things I learned very early on is if you want to get something done, you gotta find a way to make it, beneficial to everybody, and especially the ones that can make it happen. So yeah, we have a full program of cross country, indoor track and field. We have 2 full-time staff, myself and my sprint hurdles coach. We have 2 part-time assistants as well, a jumps field events coach, and a assistant cross country coach who's a former alumni. And yeah, we have 15 guys, 10 girls this year on the distance team alone. We have about
Wow.
65 on the roster. And we've had, my wife gives me perspective all the time. We look at all the schools in our conference and like, everybody's so good, they're doing this, but we're not where we were. We've come a long way, and I try to focus on that every once in a while. But obviously, in coaching, you're very competitive, and your heads down, and you're this meet, next meet, and conference, and this season, and we're not where we need to be here, and like recruiting, and but when you step back, yeah, we've come a long ways, and it's been a lot of, another shout out, Max Coleman, Bob Marchenko, currently, Sterling Jones, and our assistant coaches that we've had that have come along and helped me do things that I couldn't have done by myself. And that's huge shout out to Max Coleman, who's at UNC Wilmington now, and also Bob Marchenko, who's the head coach at Pfeiffer now, who he changed the culture of our distance program and set us in the direction that we're in now, where we've had a men's team qualified last year to nationals, a women's team qualified this year. Hopefully, I think both teams will qualify next year, and we'll be there every year from now on. That is the standard, and he set that up with the way he helped get the program going over the years.
The problems and issues that you tackle today are different than what they were when you first started. For crying out loud, you have 3 times the amount of kids on your team just on the cross country side, 9 kids to 25, not to mention the 60 plus on the entire program. You're hiring and evaluating assistant coaches. You're working with administration on different things. Where are you at today, mentor wise, as far as like, hey, when I get into a pickle, when there's I'm frustrated or just can't figure out what our next step might be, who is there anybody that you're comfortable with shouting out that you reach out to for that kind of that's a different advice than you needed when you first started?
Yeah, well, Amy Seago comes to mind. I still reach out to her.
Sweet.
Saw her to meet this past weekend, and the week before that. I get a good perspective from her, and we always have good conversations. And we've talked from everything from facilities getting built and the frustration with trying to get things done there with administration, to mental health and the current state of student athletes, and where things are heading and where things are now, and how to handle things and how to go about things, and to disciplinary issues on the team, and how to set that standard, how to deal with things like that. And then a lot of coaches in our conference, I'm very close with a couple of the coaches in our conference. And we're very competitive against each other, but also we talk a lot about budgets and issues with kids on the team and administration and all those things too. And I think it's always good to just sit around and you know this from being a coach is you'll go to a meet. It's just good to sit around everybody and commiserate sometimes about like, oh, you got this. Well, here, listen to this. Like, oh, and like you just hear that everybody's got issues and everybody's got struggles. And, like you said, from Florida down to, Florida Tech to, anybody in between, community college. I mean, everybody has their issues they're dealing with. They're different issues. And, it's issues I wish I had. I wish I had to make a decision on how many hurdles to buy next year. But yeah, it's everybody has issues, and so right now, yeah, I'm and then my past head coach that I had at Anderson, Randy Greer, he's not coaching anymore, but I reach out to him and talk to him sometimes too about how we used to do things, and he's fun to talk about on like perspective of how far things have come as well. So yeah.
Well, I want to encourage what you guys do there at the conference, having those open conversations about, well, what do your resources look like? What's kind of budget do you guys have? What is your administration telling you what next year might look like, et cetera, along with salaries, to be real frank, which is a tough conversation. I get it. Marvin Bracey just had a great interview with Assidious, I think is how you pronounce it, magazine, kind of opening up about how the professional track and field world works. And Justin Gatlin has a podcast. His first couple of episodes, he talks about contracts and things like that. Those are conversations that help move the sport forward. Those conversations that you and the conference coaches peers are having are really important. Like that's how we raise the entire profession of coaching track and field. We need to have salaries raised up. I'd love for our top end guys to make even more money. I want whoever those guys and gals are that make the top money, I want you to make double. I really do. And just as importantly, I need the floor. I want the part. I don't want any more part-time assistants. I want them all full-time, to be honest with you. But I need those guys and gals to be making 50, 60, 80, 90, 100,000 at the minimum so they can support their families and their dreams, their passions, their charities. But we don't get that way if we have the that mindset that there's a limited amount for everybody, that salary and budgets are a piece of pie. So if your pie is bigger, that means I'm getting a smaller piece of pie. We need to have the abundance mindset that, hey, if you know what we're all making here, well, that maybe gives me some impetus to go to my AD and say, hey, boss, man, what's going on here? I mean, we're being successful. We're hitting the goals, whether it's performance or roster sizes, et cetera. And you got me in 11th. Like there's only 9 teams in the conference, and I'm the 11th best paid person.
That's a funny number you picked there.
Okay. Sometimes I get lucky. I hit that dart right there in the middle.
Yeah, no, but I think that's the thing that it's good to have those conversations. A lot of times it's therapeutic as coaches to have those conversations with other people struggling with the same thing you are, and to know that you're not alone dealing with that. I mean, the first year we had a track, it was a disaster, like issues with kids on the team, people getting in trouble, people with drinking and all this, and like anything, you name it, like we had it. My phone, I would get nervous hearing my phone go off. And first 2 months were just disaster. And going to convention that fall and talking to other coaches who had started programs from scratch and hearing like, oh man, it was, I got some stories for you, like this is, and seeing where they are now and getting some respect. I came back from that. My assistant and myself came back from that, being like, oh man, that was awesome.
Oh, good. It's not me.
It's not just us. So I think that's the beauty of our sport is that, we are so kind of niche and we are so like on our own. We're not Nick Saban. We're not, college basketball and all that. We're track and field and cross country, and people don't know a lot about our sport, but when you have coaches that you really can identify with, that know exactly what you're talking about and dealing with, it is therapeutic to a sense, and I think that it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, I agree, and maybe they already do this, but I'd encourage USTFCCCA to have a real deep dive into budgets, which is support, and then salaries as well from not only a divisional level, but even down to the conference level. You can, and you should probably make it anonymous. I went to school in Alabama, so I don't really know all these big words, but keep it anonymous, whatever that means. But again, having eyesight on these things is important to our profession and will help us get better.
And I'd go one step further and say that, Mike, like the way that the NCAA has put an emphasis recently, and the world has put an emphasis on mental health of athletes, student athletes, we need a student athlete, student. These coaches are struggling.
Amen.
Like
Amen.
like the things that we're attacked with on a daily basis of like, did you say that wrong? Who did you say that to? You can't do, and like the things that we are, and then the budget concerns and this, and we need you to do this, but you can't have this or this resource, but if you don't, and like, and the family life and being away from family all the time, and being pulled. I mean, I have a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old that, every weekend currently, like they're like, they're crying when I leave, and like that's hard on somebody, and hopefully it's hard on people. You want it to be hard because it should matter, but like the mental health aspect of coaches in this profession and how coaches they're dropping like flies. People are like, I didn't get into it for this. And I think that's one thing that I've talked to Amy Segal about, is that like there's all these talks that should be taking place about student athletes' mental health and helping them. And they're obviously a part of life where they're figuring out who they are. But I think coaches too, like have like, I mean, there's no resources really, no formal resource or formal talks about like mental health of coaches and like helping them. Because then if they're healthy, they can help these student athletes.
I think you're spot on. In fact, what you kind of just helped me there is here soon we're going to have the great Dave Smith from Oklahoma State on the podcast. We haven't recorded yet. We have a date on the calendar, and one of the topics that I'd love to talk with him, because he's very influential on cross country as it relates to track and things like that. And I really thought. And I'm not sure, you tell me if this happened in Division II, Division III, maybe I'm just naive to it, but on Division I, because of COVID, it went to the national championship was like March, I don't know, I'm gonna say March 13th. It was like the weekend after NCAA indoor nationals. And I thought, even through all the difficulties that came because it was the first time we had it, so we had had to do cross country season during indoor and all that, I was like, oh man, maybe this will be the impetus. Maybe people will see like, oh man, through the fall I didn't have to try, because as a distance coach, non-distance coach here, but I was sprints, jumps, and hurdles, but I still every weekend travel for recruiting and things like that. But for a distance coach, you're 365. You're either recruiting or at a meet every stinking weekend, right? And so I thought, it's like, oh man, this cross country thing in March, I bet it went off like a bang. It was awesome. And all the coaches are going to be like, hey, you know what? It was really nice to have a fall off to where I could spend more time with my family. And I thought it would stick. I really did. I was like, oh, this is going to be the new way. And this is going to be great. By the way, it lines up with the international schedules for cross. So I was like, it's a no brainer. And here we are back on Thanksgiving weekend or whatever it is. We're doing cross country nationals again. So we're doing all the fall. So that's, I'm going to talk to Dave about that, but you helped me with kind of an angle of like, like I want to know from him, like, hey Dave, you're high powered. I mean, no one's traveling more than you for cross country meets and recruiting and stuff like that. What was the mental health for you and your family? Like, should we get back to that? Like, is he a proponent or opponent of that? I'm going to ask that with Dave Smith. So I appreciate you helping with that, because I agree 100%. I think our coaches are undervalued, underpaid, underappreciated, and that's one of the things we started the podcast for, was to help kind of raise that stature. No one was interviewing the rock stars that are the coaches, and that's what we started to do, and we're going to continue doing for many seasons. All right, Jason, wrap us up here. We're getting close to our time. We talked about what the beginning of Catawba looked like for you. We got to today. What's got you excited about the future? And you dictate that, whether it's this season, 5 seasons. What's got you excited there for Catawba College?
Yeah, I think there's the cliche thing that every coach is expected to say, like, "Oh, it's going to be, everything's looking good. Like we're doing a lot better now." But it's true here. Like we're in a new era at Catawba. We've had some, as a small private school, funding and budget and all that are always a concern, especially where it's enrollment driven, things like that. And then we're still a little bit there, but like we've had some donors in the past 2 years that have stepped up and given huge donations to the school that have gotten us out of some financial issues. that every school deals with, and also has set us on a trajectory for like the future and kind of speeding up the future, and bringing it more to, maybe 15, 20-year outlook is maybe a 2 to 5 year outlook now. And so we have a new athletic director who is extremely supportive and extremely competitive, which is a breath of fresh air.
That's good.
No,
Yeah.
last one wasn't, but like, I think that Michelle Cadigan, our new athletic director, is, she means what she says. And that's something that is, you know, we had a certain brand before apparel, and now we have a different brand of apparel that came, right as she got here. And she said, we're switching, we're moving, and we're trying to make some changes and get these students excited. And, facilities are in the talks right now. And we're working with a, possible, collaboration with the community to build a community track facility that would be our home. And, I'm excited about that opportunity because I'm not the only person talking about it now, which the track coach always, who doesn't have a track, always talks about, well, maybe getting a track, maybe getting a track.
Yeah, we need others saying that too.
Yeah. But when the president and other people in the community and the school district and other people that you've heard of are having this conversation, excited about partnering together, and there's a timeline that's kind of close, that's exciting. When there's those kind of things on it, then it gets you excited. But also just, the type of athletes we have now, the success we've had recently, we want, to be a player every year at the national stage with cross country and indoor and outdoor. And we've got to the point now where last year, I mean, one of the things that I think I can, and not to brag, but like these athletes on our team, we had a men's cross country team make nationals last year. So that's the 10K. A team made it in the 10K pretty much. And we had our men's 4x1 almost made it to outdoor nationals last year. They were the first team out, which hurt. But you're talking about the range of the 4x1,
right?
A crew making it to the national level, and like that's something that I think as a small school and the resources we have, I think that's cool. Be excited about and know that, like, we have some very good recruits coming next year. Funding and facilities, and our athletic director and nutrition and things like that. They're making changes here that are visible, and that it's the most exciting time we've ever had. With the success that we had in the fall, our women's basketball team made it to the Final Four. Our women's soccer team is extremely competitive, and the student athletes overall at the school and the students at the school are very proud of their school right now. So that's a good thing that you can't just manufacture. It
right.
Happen with the culture change.
Yeah, I tell you, Jason, one of the things we believe in here is that healthy things grow, right? If you think about everything from a garden to yourself to, your children, healthy things grow. And so it's so cool to see Catawba go from, barely 9 cross-country runners to one step away from qualifying the 4x1. And I think that's so cool. I thought that was a great example. I thought that's so cool about depth of your program. So we love seeing that growth there. We love seeing the growth of new facilities, of course, because that's going to help. You've had this growth up to now. A new facility is going to help you take a whole nother leap for growth. And then the other thing, really the most important thing, Jason, the growth of you that we've touched on here, man. I just think, I got you at the right time on this podcast. It's going to be awesome to get you back on in season number 15 and see how the continued growth has been, because you're a changed person. Who you are today is not who you were back in Anderson. And what's awesome is who you are tomorrow is not who you were today. You continue to grow and develop and have great people like your wife and your family and your kids, your actual kids, and then your kids on the team, your administration. Those kind of people are just pouring into you, making you a better coach, a better person every day. So it's just been awesome to see the growth that you're leading there at Catawba and that you're leading with yourself as well.
Thank you.
Jason, thanks again for being here, man. I'm always just so humbled when coaches, not only, first of all, when you agree to be on the show, because that's its own thing to be on the show and kind of bare your soul. And I give you no guidance. So you're kind of like, what is Mike going to ask me? What are we going to do? So I'm just so grateful for that. But also to do it during the middle of track season, to me, is I know how busy you are. In fact, I don't know how busy you are. I just know you're extremely busy. So to spend, 2 hours with me, man, I'm just so grateful, just so humbled that you do it for us and for our listeners, and just just awesome to see and hear your story and share it with our listeners, and the effect that it's going to have on them. We brought up some amazing topics today, from mental health of coaches. That's extremely important. Leadership. Your three, I put you on the spot, and you've nailed it, by the way. The three things that you had to accomplish when you got there, those three things that you mentioned: setting expectations, instilling pride, and recruiting. That's going to help. There's a coach out right now that's listening that just took those notes and was like, oh, thank you. Okay, now I have direction. I have focus on what I'm doing. So you provided a lot of value today, and I'm just so thankful for you and what you did today, and what you're continuing to do as a coach of young people in the college ranks.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this podcast. I've listened over the years a little bit, but I've definitely, I appreciate the insight and kind of being able to, go on those van rides sometimes when you're in a van by yourself and turn this on and hear other coaches' perspectives and stuff. So thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this.
Awesome, man. Well, you guys keep listening, and we'll keep doing it. I've already got our next 4 or 5 guests lined up, and it don't stop. I told you, it's kind of like Pokemon. I got to catch them all. I want every coach on the program, and we only do 52 a year, so it's going to take me a while, but I already mentioned season 15, so I'm kind of committed for at least another 11 years to do this, and we're going to keep doing it, keep having fun. So keep listening. Maybe share it with another coach out there that could receive value from Jason and other people's story, and we'll just come back next week and do it all over again. Thanks for being here, guys. Have a great week.